Welcome to Scale Her Up, the show for female business owners and leaders who want to grow profitable, sustainable businesses without burning out. I'm Dr. Brenda Hector, a business growth specialist helping women develop themselves and their businesses so they can achieve their goals and enjoy the lifestyle they dream of. In each episode, you'll hear inspiring stories, honest conversations, and practical strategies to help you start, grow, or scale your business. If you're new here, hit follow so you don't miss an episode, and come and join our Scale Her Up Facebook community to keep the conversation going. And in conversation with me today, I've got Sarah Stone. She's the founder and director of Samtaler, the social value agency. Sarah, thank you so much for being part of the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
So let's start off. Samtaler, what is it that you do?
So we are a social value agency. So we help companies create and deliver social value and embed social value into their operating model. Our clients are mainly larger firms. So we tend to find that smaller businesses are more connected to the people that they most impact and don't therefore need our help. But when we talk about social value is all about the value that you create for people. So we're talking about the value that you create for your stakeholders. And that traditionally businesses have only really ever looked at the most important stakeholder was their shareholders, whether that was the person that owned the business or whether it was an investment vehicle. Businesses were always designed to just serve the needs of shareholders. But those times are long gone, thank God. And now, if you want to be a successful business, you need to serve the needs of all of your stakeholders, and that's your staff, your customers, your suppliers, your communities, the people that you need to enable your business to survive. And the problem is a lot of businesses don't know how to do that. So that's where we come in.
So are we talking ethics and environment and corporate responsibility?
Yeah. So there are lots of different applications for it. One of our biggest markets, it wasn't when I first started the business. So I had the idea for it in 2015, so 11 years ago now. And I was running a social enterprise at the time. I was in Scotland and I was working with community groups and I was helping them. We were helping them navigate the political system. My background is in politics and government, and navigate the political system and take advantage of Community Empowerment Act and land reform and different powers that have been brought to communities. And I was doing that piece of work and someone gave me the Procurement Reform Act, which is a piece of legislation that we have in Scotland that puts a sustainable procurement responsibility, if you like, on public sector bodies, and says, if you're going to spend public sector money, you have to think about who you're spending it with, and sustainable procurement decisions have to influence your buying choices. And someone gave me this piece of legislation and I read it and I thought, oh my God, that's amazing. But it's not, people won't understand what companies can do. Companies won't understand what the public sector wants, and no one knows what communities need. So you need something in the middle. And at the same time, I'd also been looking and thinking, so when I had the privilege of working in Number 10. And when I did that, I would think, gosh, why did companies spend all this money on lobbying and public affairs companies trying to avoid legislation coming, which really just needs to happen anyway? They ought to be leaning into it. They ought to be thinking about how they can stop something coming. They should be thinking about how they can try and help make it happen, because most of the things that policymakers and legislators want are just most people, ordinary people in the country want them as well. We all want our companies to behave, not to damage things and create negative impact when they operate, and create positive. So it just seemed to me like really good business sense.
Yeah.
Just a no-brainer. I didn't know why anyone wasn't doing it. And that's where the idea from the business came from. And so when I said, when you start thinking about these things, when you have an idea for a business, it normally starts with you thinking, you spot a problem, don't you? And then you don't always know what the solution is, but you might think you do. And then you come up with a solution, you think that might be a business. But then there's a period of time that you go through where you have to work out, will anyone pay for your solution? The problem might exist, but is it causing anyone enough pain that they're willing to pay money to solve it? And half the time, the answer is no. So I think successfully getting through that stage is a really important part of starting a business. And when I was at that point, that was when someone gave me the Procurement Reform Act. And I thought, there's this brilliant application. That's going to be a pain. That's going to cause them pain if they want to win contracts. And then 5 years later, in 2020, similar legislation came in England. So now and actually all the devolved nations, all of public procurement have requirements around this. So we do a lot of work in that space, but we also do work with companies who want to create social value for other reasons that are not procurement related. So do quite a lot of work in onshore wind where developers are looking to build onshore wind farms, but make sure that they actually really genuinely deliver benefits to communities, because historically that's been an industry, a sector that has perhaps but it's not fulfilled the promises that it's made to communities in planning. And we've got other companies who might, maybe they know they want to expand their factory and they need to get the support of the local community. Or maybe they know they've got a retention problem and they can't work out why, and they need to do something to make, why do our staff not? There's lots of reasons why you might want to create social value. Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. So yeah, you've explained that well. You've explained the benefit to your customers. So in terms of the public sector procurement, you're helping businesses sell to public sector and the right boxes from these policies.
Yeah, although it's interesting that you say tick the right boxes, because a lot of people think the application of social value in public sector procurement is just about ticking a box, and it's really not. So ticking a box would be compliance. That would be like, we want to make sure we're buying from a business that, isn't going to have modern slaves in its workforce, right? So you would ask them, compliance questions, tick the box would be, do you comply with the Modern Slavery Act? Yes. Give me evidence of how you comply with the Modern Slavery Act. The social value question is, tell us what you'll do on this contract to mitigate the risks of modern slavery. And you have to start by telling them what the risks are on the contract. And then you have to say what you're going to do about it. And that's the bit where everybody scratches their heads, because most companies go as far as legal compliance and they stop at that point and they say, we've got a modern slavery statement on our website. And a modern slavery statement is not the answer to the question. No. What do you do on this contract? So and the reason it's so important is because the public sector wants to, just like any consumer, right? You or I will go to a supermarket, or we'll need to buy something and we'll have a choice. And we can either go to Amazon for it, or we can go to the local shop around the corner for it. And where we choose to buy it from, there'll be lots of things that factor into our decision. But for a lot of people, they will, 9 times out of 10, they would prefer to buy it from the shop around the corner if they can, if the shop around the corner has it in stock and it's not too expensive. Do you know what I mean? Or you might go to the supermarket and you might choose to buy potatoes or carrots from Scotland versus carrots from France, because they might be a little bit more expensive, but they've come from Scotland and they've not been shipped in. So in the same way that you make those sustainable purchasing choices, the public sector is the same. They want to buy from products and services from people who do that. So does that answer the question? I don't know whether I feel like I haven't quite.
I'm not even sure I had a question. I was just replaying.
Yeah, you were like, yeah. And when you think of, it's one of those, it's quite a niche. It's quite a niche sector that I'm in. It's quite, because our customers tend to be really large firms. And that's intentional, because the reason I set the business up was because I genuinely think social value done properly can make businesses better. Yeah. And it can genuinely make them better. And not just help them win a contract, genuinely make them better. It'll make them places that people want to work for, they want to buy from. And also, I want to live in a world that is a bit better than the one that we're in at the moment. And I'd tried working in politics. I thought I could make a difference there. And then I thought, no, do you know what, actually? Most of what we do in the world is run by companies, whether they're small companies in 1 or 2 people, you're nodding, or whether they're like companies with thousands of people. Yeah, and we often feel really powerless, don't we? And we say, oh, the politicians are really crap and there's a crazy person in charge in America and all this kind of stuff. And we can't do anything. And we can't do anything about that, but we can do something about the companies that we work for, because we are actually powerful in a way we weren't as powerful even 50 years ago. If you go into, we've all seen those videos, haven't we, of people being fired or being treated really badly by their bosses. And then it's videoed and played on the internet. You've got a lot more power than you had. So I think it's just about, I think that we can really influence the way our business, you don't have to wait for policymakers to make it the law to do some of this stuff. You really don't. And there's a really strong commercial, even if it costs you more money in the short term, as long as the thing that you're choosing to do is aligned with the business activity that you're in, right? So it makes sense for your business, then it just make your business better. But yeah, so our customers they tend to be really large firms. So we work for people like Oracle, Thales, Airbus, Sopra Steria, just really big firms like that, really. And we work for smaller ones as well, but we do 10% of our time is spent pro bono, because that means that we can, if a really small business comes and says, oh, I'm trying to get some work with the local council, can you explain what this thing is to me? I just want to explain it to them. I want them to know. I don't want to charge them for it. And the same with charities. And we all, like, everyone in Samtaler has a kind of either is a trustee or a volunteer for a local community group, because then that means that it keeps us connected to what their needs are. Because I think
that it's you living what you're helping others to do.
Yeah. It's got also half the things we want to do. I don't know about you, but I don't go to work to get paid. I go to work because I like what I do, and it's what I do with my time on this earth, kind of thing. So I just, maybe I'm not very money driven. I'm crap at the business side, but I've got someone else that helps with that.
So let's talk about when you started out.
Yes.
With the decision. Yeah, you worked in number 10, you said. So
yes, I did.
Talk about the journey from
number 10 to here. Yes. So I don't know. It depends how far back you want to go, really. So no secret. I'm about a week away from being 49. So I left school at 18 and joined the army, actually, which is quite random. Yeah. Because my dad said, I remember my dad, he came home with this booklet and he said, you're going to get £12,000 a year and you're going to get salary. And he basically marched me to the recruiting office. So joined the army. That was amazing. And then after the army, went and did a degree and lived in London for a bit, did a degree. And I worked my degree was in war studies and worked at the Imperial War Museum. I did that for about 5 years. And then after that, worked in corporate. I was basically working in corporate events and did event management for about 10 years. And then I remember being at a party one night, and it was like really high-end events, really rich people. And I think they'd spent 50 grand on the flowers, and it was ridiculous what this party cost. It was 2:00 in the morning, and I'm like the event manager, and I'm looking at the staff all running around clearing up after these drunk, rich bankers, basically, who were being idiots. And I remember thinking, what am I doing? Tomorrow morning, there's going to be nothing to show for this party. There'll be some idiots with hangovers, and there's some students that have got some money in their pocket because they've obviously been working. I'll have to eat, and that's it. Everything else would have disappeared. All the hire equipment would have gone. The 50 grand on the flowers won't even been donated. They'll be in the bin. And I thought, what am I doing? So I quit that and went traveling for a year. And that kind of, I was about 30 by about this point. And I just thought, what am I doing with my life? And I came back and I thought, I've lost my way. I'm going to go back to what I wanted to make a difference in the world. That's why I joined the army, why I did my degree. So I'd wanted to go and work for, is this interesting? Because it's nothing to do with business.
It's Monday. Make a difference.
Yeah, and I'd wanted to go and work for, I wanted to go and do humanitarian work. That's what I really would have loved. But by that point, I had a boyfriend. Was I engaged? No. But I had a long-term partner, and I'm 30, I'm not 20. You know what I mean? You're just in a different stage of life, aren't you? And I had worked quite hard over 10 years to work my way up within the events industry. So even though I'd left it, I didn't really want to lose that too much. So I remember thinking, I know, I'll go and work for an organisation that makes a difference. So I made a list, so stupidly think about it. I made a list of all these organisations, and it was like the BBC and the National Trust and the Red Cross, but there weren't really any jobs in the UK, all these kinds of organisations. And I looked at them, none of them had any jobs. And this is going to make you laugh. But then I remembered that the Conservative Party, now I'm not political, I wasn't political at all, wasn't really something that even really, but one of the last events before I'd gone travelling had been that we'd organised was a leadership dinner. So the Conservative Party, it was the year that David Cameron was elected leader in 2005, 2006, and there'd been a leadership dinner the night before the vote. So it was David Davis, Liam Fox and David Cameron, and they were the three candidates. And the Conservative Party put this dinner on at Banksting House in London, and all the hoi polloi of the Conservative Party went, and the vote was going to be announced the next day. And the company I work for organised the dinner. So I'm in the room at the back of the room, and there's these people talking, and I'd never heard politicians speak before. But anyway, this bloke, David Cameron, stood up, and I was like, and he was amazing. And I was like, oh my God, you're all right. I'd vote for you. You're speaking sense. So fast forward, whatever it is, 12 months. And I'd remembered this, and he'd been elected, and he was trying to rebrand the Conservative Party, and he was talking about the environment. He was talking about all the things that really resonated with me. And I thought, I'll just have a look at the website. And there was this job in comms doing really fit my skill set. So I applied for it, not realizing that it was a job working for somebody called Steve Hilton, who was his kind of close advisor and is currently running to be governor of California. But that's a whole other conversation. But anyway, so I ended up working for him. It was a huge privilege, it was really lucky. They wanted somebody who didn't really want to be a politician. They just wanted somebody who had skills they could use. And it was a really good fit, and I loved it. And I worked for them from 2006 till 2012. So all the way through the the opposition and the financial crash, and then, crisis. And then I coordinated the General Election Manifesto in 2010. And then in 2010, when we had the coalition government, I went and was lucky enough to get a job in number 10 as external relation advisor, which was amazing, totally amazing. Yeah, and it was just one of those right place, right time. I think most people's lives, when you think, how did you get here? It's all by chance, isn't it? Yeah. When people say, what are you going to do when you get older? I still don't know what I'm going to do when I get older, when I grow up. But you just fall into things. And that's what happened. And so, so I was doing this job, loved it. And by this point, I'd married my then boyfriend, and he is in the army. And so he came home one day and he said, I've got a new job and we're going to Germany. And I was like, good luck with that. I'm not. I'm like, but you have to choose, don't you? You have to choose I had to choose between my family and my job, and I chose my family. So I quit and went to Germany, and that was really difficult, actually. I didn't appreciate how difficult it was going to be until it happened. And then we spent 2 years in Germany, and then I thought we'd come back to England and I could get my job back. And again, the universe was looking out for me, because thank God I was nowhere near any of the ridiculousness that's happened since 2012. It had nothing to do with me, because we moved to Scotland. And we moved to Scotland, and then I spent probably the best part of 8 years in Scotland. And then that's where I set the business up. So that's how I ended up here.
Yeah. So you, as a military spouse, and you needed a job that you could...
I needed a job. Yeah. And I couldn't get one. And I was really lucky when I moved to Scotland in 2014, and I got a job working on the independence referendum. Again, amazing experience. Just one of those moments. And after the referendum, there's an amazing woman called Pauline McNeill, who's an MSP in Glasgow. And I'd met her on the campaign, and she said to me, I think we worked well together. Let's do something. And we set a social enterprise up. And so we were doing that. But the campaign had finished and we were doing the social enterprise. But it was really difficult. I was hundreds of miles away from my family, I was actually in Edinburgh, but then we moved to Lucas, which is in North East Fife, just outside Dundee. So I've got small children. I've got no family in France. I've got military friends, but not really anyone. They're all in the same boat. I haven't got anyone that can look after my kids for me. And John was away all the time. He did a UN tour. He did a UN tour in Cyprus, which he loved. It was great, hot and sunny, but I was a bit like, thanks for that. And I suppose it's the challenges that most women that have children or families face, your caregivers, and it's the same juggles that most women face. But on top of that, you're doing it a long way away from your support network. And because you move so frequently, you can't build a support network locally. And then you've also got a partner who works for an organization that I think it's fair to say is not a modern employer. So culturally, there's this, why can't your wife do it type attitude? Why can't you, so that can make it really difficult to work and commute. And I remember talking to somebody and she said, I could get you a job. If you're in London, I could get you a job anywhere, but you're not. You are. And I just thought the only way that I was going to work is if I found work for myself, and I could find work that worked around my lifestyle and my kids and was flexible enough to. And that's what the business did for me.
That comes up in a lot of these conversations, actually, that a lot of women start a business because they're working and having small children is incompatible.
Yeah, which is insane, because starting a business is one of the most, and also starting a business actually is easy, but keeping it going, one of the hardest things that you will ever do. I remember I was really angry for a number of years because I was like, this is really hard work. It's soul destroying. I'm not making any money. It would be so much easier just to get a job. And this is before COVID as well. Before COVID, people thought you had to be in an office, didn't you? 5 days a week. Whereas I knew that ever since I'd really worked for the Conservatives, Steve was quite an enlightened employer. So he would let me, wherever we were posted, he would let me do a few days a week from the quarter military base and then a few days a week in London. So it worked. But I think that was also a big difference. It would just be so much easier if you could just work for an employer who, and I still get really cross now when I talk to, normally it's men in companies who say, you can't be as productive in the office. And I'm like, you can't, but all the women I know can be.
And I think if the employer gives the woman the flexibility that she needs, if a kid's ill or whatever the challenge is, you do want to go to sports day and I was
Yeah.
talking to somebody this morning whose sports day was supposed to be this afternoon, but it's been postponed because of the rain. So now she's got to reject her week next week. If
Yeah.
your employer gives you the flexibility to be able to do that, you give more back.
Oh my God, it's so true.
Yeah.
So I find that with Samtaler. So there's 9 of us now, including me, and we're all women, which is an accident. Like, I know it's not very diverse, but we are. And some people work part-time. Most people work at least a minimum of about 30 hours a week. But because we're a virtual business and we work flexibly, so there are core hours, but people can, they've got a certain number of hours per week they need to do, and it's up to them how they do them. They can flex depending. And that's what we don't, I can't remember the last time somebody left. It's, people really value it, and they say they really value it. And I think that's great because now I'm a business owner and I employ them. I know how much it costs, and do you know what I mean? And I know the downside of it. But when I'm sitting there thinking it's always worth it, because I wouldn't want to lose a single member of my team. They're amazing, and I've invested loads of time in them, and they've given loads to me.
Yeah.
So actually, it's not even a hard thing to ask, is it really, to do? I just don't think enough businesses realize the benefits of it. But yeah, they'll definitely work harder for you and give you more.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been there. I've been one. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's good.
So you mentioned it's hard to grow, to keep, it's easy enough to start a business. It's hard
Yeah.
to keep it going.
You don't know that when you start, though. Like, when
No,
you're
you don't.
starting. And I've got a mentor, and I keep saying to him, and he, you know how old he is. If he ever listens to this, he'll be mortified, but I don't know, let's say he's 70. And he's sold a business. He's grown a number of businesses, and he's had a long career, and he's sold a business and been very successful. And so I say to him, what don't I know? And he always looks at me like I'm insane. And I'm like, because I don't know what comes next. Like, I've got 9. I know about having 9 people now. I know so much more than I did then, but I don't know what happens when you get to 20. And I don't know, I don't know what I don't know. Tell me. And he just thinks I'm a bit mad. But I think there's definite stages, isn't there? And you only know the one that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why things like this podcast are really important.
And I'm just thinking about reflecting on my business as an action coach, and it's a tough gig, but it's a hard sell. But if you can do it, you can do really well in it. And watching new people join, and there's a new person joined recently, and I said to them, it's going to be harder than you think. However hard you think it is, it'll be harder than that. But you can't get it across to them.
No.
They're not going to understand how hard it is until they're there in it.
Yeah. And I think actually that's one of the things for me, that because I didn't have an alternative, there was no failure wasn't an option because I had nothing else. So I was quite lucky in a way. I'd lost everything. So I had nothing. So I had nothing to lose. Whereas some people, I think they might give up a well-paying job to start a business, and that's I didn't have a job and I had to make it work. So I couldn't not just keep going forward. And I think in some ways that was an advantage that I think military partners have, because whereas if you're not in that situation, and I remember there were times where my husband would say to me, oh, when are you going to bring some money in? When are you going to get a proper job? All this stuff. And it's just really difficult, isn't it? You're like, but yeah, there's an amazing woman actually called Jess Sounds, and she's another military spouse, and she runs something called Millspo. And they do a business startup course for people who are in the military community who are looking to start up businesses. And I was talking to her last week about it, and she was telling me about the course. It's an 8-week course, and it's free. It's funded by a charity who pay for spouses to do it. And they do 8 weeks. It's virtual. So they drop the course on a Monday, and then you have the week to watch it and do what you're meant to do. And then on the Friday, they have like a virtual meetup, Q&A session. And she was, which I thought was brilliant. And that's fantastic. That works for everybody. You can plan your week. Some people will probably just sit down on a Monday and do it. Some people might spread it. But that's brilliant. And you've got the accountability at the end. But I was talking to her about what the course covers, and it was really interesting. She said, big part of it's about mindset. So she has 2 or 3 weeks, just what you said, just on mindset, on imposter syndrome, what to do when it's really hard. And I think that's the big part of running a business, isn't it? It's just that. And maybe that is one area we talked to me about, the difference between men and women. And I think that mindset thing is an area that men, they'll have their own struggles with it, but there'll be different kinds of struggles, maybe. I don't know if that's been your experience.
Yeah. I think From what I've seen and the research I've done, I think women are more risk averse
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm definitely really risk. So my business could be a lot bigger, but I'm super cautious. We're growing organically. We call ourselves boutique because we work for really big firms where people don't expect us to be as small as we are. We're approved suppliers for lots of really large companies. And it's intentional because I've grown it organically. There's no funding. I don't want any funding because I'm just super risk averse. And I know I know there's a level of risk that I'm uncomfortable with. Yeah. I think probably there are some men out there like that too, but not many.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a female thing.
So what have you learned about Sarah then on the journey as an entrepreneur?
Good question. Probably that I am an entrepreneur. I would never have thought I was. But now I can spot them a mile off. I can spot entrepreneurial skills sets in people that either work for me or just exist. You can see those people that can see ways to make things happen. Yeah. I've learned so many.
I'm thinking about Dragon's Den. I was at a conference that Sarah Davies was speaking at just last month. And they talk about the people. They're not investing in the business, they're investing in the people. So those are the entrepreneurs, aren't they? Those are the ones when you meet them, you know they're going to make all of it.
Yeah. It's true actually, but it also makes you a much better judge of character and people. You realise actually the success of teams comes down to the leader, but also the people in that team. I've just learned so much. I think about what I did. I feel really blessed and really grateful because I'm exactly where I want to be. I wouldn't be anywhere else now. And all those years of difficulty were worth every minute of it to get here. I would have been in a very different place if I hadn't have had that happen. And I'm sure that place would have been great. I'd like to think that place would have been great. But I think what I didn't know and what I know now there's just so much. And then also, you think all the things if you had this conversation in 10 years' time when I'm nearly 60, what am I going to say then? Probably, you didn't have a clue. You had no idea.
If you knew what you know now, would you have still done it, do you think?
If I knew I was going to get to where I am now, yes. But there were definitely times where the answer would have been no. Without a shadow of a doubt. No, because it was just and even now I do still think you could lose it all. It only had to take a couple of months, 2 or 3 months of not having and you could lose it all. And then it would all be gone. So you would still have it in your head, but that would be really difficult.
You'd still have the learning though, wouldn't you?
You'd still have the learning.
That way.
You can't know.
What you've learned
no, and I wouldn't want to go back to work for someone else.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that again. I think I'd be a rubbish. The only thing I would love to do is I would love to go and get a job on a checkout in a supermarket. Because I had a job, I used to have when I was a kid, before I had loads of jobs. I've always worked since I was I think I got my first job. I think it was a paper round when I was about 12. And then I got a job when I was 13 or 14, washing dishes in a kitchen. And I just always had jobs. And normally 2 or 3 different jobs as well. But it was always retail, shops, kitchens, bars, that kind of stuff. And I had a job my favourite job was working for 88 Smiths. Loved it. I still can't walk into a Smiths, although they're not called Smiths. Have they changed the name of them in Scotland as well? Really annoying. They're not called Smiths anymore. But yeah, why did I mention that? Because I used to love sitting on the till and you talk to people and you run things through the till and pack them. And I'd love that job, just to sit on a checkout and see what people are buying and just not have to make decisions and just turn up, do my job. Do you know what I mean? Go home.
But yes, but would you really? How long would you last?
Yeah, probably not very long. I'll wait till I'm old and retired and then B&Q will take me because B&Q take older workers, don't they? B&Q will take me. Yeah. But I think I could work for someone else in that capacity as a worker bee, but I don't think I could work for someone else. And that's one thing we say actually, because we're a consultancy and so we work for lots of different companies and our clients tend to be sustainability professionals. So they'll be like heads of social impact or heads of social value or whatever, directors of sustainability. And they tend to be individuals. Sometimes they have teams, but they're very small teams. And the reason they call us in is because they either need external advice or they need extra support and more people. And so we become like their colleagues. We're on the same level as them and just experts, similar professionals. And we talk to them all, and they're all having exactly the same dramas and exactly the same challenges. And we come back together and we say, oh, thank God. Some of them have got really tricky situations with difficult companies and difficult working environments and difficult individuals. And you think, and
they're unable to make decisions and make changes because they're within a big organization, whereas
exactly.
you can. Yeah.
We can. Exactly. And they can't leave it either. That's their, whereas we can go, oh, let's go do some work for another client now, shall we? We can chop and change. And so, that is definitely an advantage. But
So what advice would you have for another woman looking to start and scale a business?
Can't do it on your own. You can't do it on your own. So I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for, well, there are so many organizations and people that helped me on the way and still help me. Where's Women's Enterprise Scotland? Amazing. Business Gateway, amazing. Business Gateway in 5 was just so helpful. I'm a huge fan, and we don't have them in England. And everyone in England should be very jealous. So they're brilliant. I think you just need people that can tell you this is normal, this isn't normal. You also need other people who are going through the same thing as you at the same time. Because again, you can then, it's a bit like when you have kids and you go to NCT classes, it's the same thing as it. You need someone else on the same journey as you.
Yeah.
So you can bitch and moan at the same time and be like, oh, that's normal. And then the other thing I would say is probably, it's going to take you way longer than you think it'll take you. And it's going to take you way longer to make money. I remember someone saying to me, take you way longer to make money than you think it will. But when you get that first check, that feeling of that first check, which it was at the time as a check, won't be anymore, and he was totally right when he said that. But also I think the other thing as well is, if you've got an idea for a business or you're running a business, but also making sure that the thing that you're selling is solving a problem that someone's got. Because it's really easy to come up with an idea for a business, and you might think it's something that people will pay for, but unless they've actually got paid, unless they may have the problem, but they might not be prepared to pay for the solution. And that's the key thing, isn't it? Because if they're not prepared to pay for the solution, you can't make a business out of it.
Absolutely.
And that can take quite a while. I remember someone was saying, you've got to be prepared to pivot. I've had to do that a few times, pivot, where I was convinced I was right and I wasn't. It was also, you can also be a bit ahead of your time. I think that you think sometimes entrepreneurs can see things other people can't see, and the market's not ready for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's really frustrating when the market catches up, because you're like, I've been saying this big.
I offered that to you 5 years ago.
I said, but that doesn't actually matter what you think, does it? It's what they think. So there's just so much to learn. Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting from you, actually. And like you're saying, what do I not? What don't I know? So there's always something to learn.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, there's loads I don't know. I've only got 9. I'm a tiny little business. I'm really proud of it. But I could never imagine when I was sitting in my quarter, and because I move every 2 years as well, so the business is virtual. We're still based in Scotland because, I wouldn't be here without Scotland. I wouldn't be here without the network and the clients and the support that I got. My first clients were all Scottish local authorities, like my roots, and I'm desperate to come back. But we are virtual, so everyone's all over the country and we all work virtually. Why was I saying that? Yeah, so I was sitting there in my quarter thinking, how am I supposed to grow this? Like, how am I supposed to employ somebody if they can't sit next to me? Like, I just couldn't envisage how that could happen. It just seemed like mind-blowing, but it's totally doable.
Yeah.
It does take quite a bit of work to make it. You have to be quite intentional, I think, if your business is virtual, about how you work with people. But what do other people that come on say? What's the thing that most people think about, they wish they knew, or
I don't know. There are lots.
What do you think? What do you think I need to know from having spoken to people who've got businesses who are bigger than me?
What are the common themes? Yeah, ask for help. You can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with good people that are better than you at what you have to have a level of understanding to manage them, but they need to be better than you at the thing that you're employing them for.
Yes. But that's quite hard though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially if the thing you do is quite specialist and you're a specialist in it. It's quite hard to find people who are better than you at it.
Yeah.
There's magic when you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about They reckon that a good leader is developing people who are going to overtake them.
Yes. Yeah, that's really
You
true.
don't,
That's a
to be a good leader, it's not about you keeping out in front, actually. It's about
no.
you letting other people become
Yeah.
the leader.
Yeah. It's also about different, like there's different kinds of leaders, aren't there? And I was thinking, if I was to think of myself, it would be like a servant leader. I like my job is to make sure everybody else shines. That's my job. Because if they shine, then we all do. And then I can go off and get a job on the supermarket checkout.
I've got some thoughts about political leaders, but we won't go
Oh,
down
yeah. No, I hate
after you've talked politics. No, by not talking politics, if you like, but
I
yeah.
know. Whenever I tell my story, I'm always a bit reluctant to talk about the political. You kind of can't say you worked in number 10 without having to talk about politics and who it was for. Because I'm not a very political with a small p, but I'm not aligned to a particular party or.
You know,
I'm more.
what you do is political with a small p, but
Yeah.
it's not getting into politics, but it's
No,
actually having an
it's-
impact. And yeah, and me too, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about changing the world, isn't it? It's about
Yeah.
making things different. And I think a lot of things are about communication as well. So Samtaler means conversations in Danish, and I'm not Danish. But if you've got a surname like Stone, all the business names with a stone in it have all gone. So I had to think of something else. But you can't create social value without talking to people, which is why I picked that word. But I think that a lot of the reasons that misunderstandings happen is always communication. A lot of the reasons that, whether it's misinformation or whether it's even political scandals, or never, very rarely, because somebody intentionally tried to, whatever, deceive. No, that's probably not true, actually. But do you know what I mean? Most things happen because people make mistakes, or because they're lazy, or because they don't know something, or do you know what I mean? It's or not trained, or it's never a whole group of people sitting in a room going, let's, through the economy and, take everything we can. It's just not.
No.
It could be greedy individuals. It could be venal individuals, but it's never like it's very rarely a collective thing. And I think a lot of the reason why a lot of people feel disempowered is because they can't navigate the system. They can't. It's really hard if you're just an ordinary person trying to. What you want to do is just live your life, don't you? And feed your kids and go to the football the weekend and have a nice time. And people don't. And it's hard. Yeah. I couldn't be a politician. Just couldn't. I wouldn't know.
Me either. Me either. Yeah.
No way. I'd much rather work with businesses.
Yeah. Because we can have massive impact working with businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we can, because when we were talking about this, weren't we? Businesses run most of the world, like it or not. Most of the things, the roads we drive on were all laid by companies. They get fixed by businesses, the hospitals, even the police and the military. The employees are civil servants, but all the equipment they're provided with all comes from companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think we don't need to wait for legislation and policymakers to tell us to do the things that are the right things to do. We can just do them. And we can all do that.
I think that's where we're going to have to stop, because we've run out of time. Honestly, I could have talked to you for twice as long, Sarah. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Really nice.
And thank you to you, the listeners, for listening to Scale Her Up. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the show and leave a review. It helps more female business owners find us. Come and join our Scale Her Up Facebook community to get support, accountability, and connection with women who get it. And remember, only 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs are female, and men are 5 times more likely to scale their business beyond £1 million in turnover than women. When we start and scale our businesses to the same extent as men, we'll add, I thought it was 250 billion, but I discovered this week it's £310 billion to the UK economy and create millions of jobs. What could the politicians do with that, eh? Ladies, you can do it, and your business can make a massive difference.